Hey guys, it's UC with some home arcade news. Now, I was traveling this week, so apologies to all of you. I wasn't able to break this news, and some of you maybe have already seen this, but I wanted to make sure that I get this out there because it is pretty crucial. It is pretty important news. It looks like we're getting an OutRun cabinet from Arcade1up. But before we dive into that, I want to take a moment to thank the folks that joined the channel this month. There's that join button below. I don't know if you see it on mobile, but you definitely see it if you're on a laptop or something like that. That is to support the channel by becoming a member. It starts at 99 cents a month, and then there are a couple options above that. But basically, you get a shout out on the channel, and you also get a special icon next to your name. It's Punch Out related, so initially you start out as Little Mac, and then you have to see from there the icon changes the longer you're a member. So it's just a little thing. If you guys are interested in joining, been watching the channel for a while, hit that button. But I do want to thank Guy Williams, Arcade Will, Louis Nicholson, and MB who have already joined. And specifically for Guy Williams, he has a son with a YouTube channel called Liam Boom. I would recommend you check that out. If you've got someone with kids and you're into whatever kids do, that might be a good channel to look at. I know they do a lot of theme park visits. So anyway, let's look at this news. And I did have a few viewers who pointed out to me, I don't know if it was late last night or this morning, that this was out there. And I wish I could have got to it sooner, but I do want to thank you guys for letting me know. I always appreciate the tips. Basically, if you go into Arcade1up's ticketing system or customer support system, you can select which game that you're getting advice for or that you're putting in a support ticket for, and it's going to cover all their products. The problem is, or maybe the opportunity here for us, is occasionally it'll cover a product that has not yet been announced. This has happened before, and this has been reliable before, so I do trust this leak. And that is that there's an OutRun cabinet coming. Now, what surprises me is, even though this went live this morning with some people, I think P-Dubs covered this, they've not pulled this from their customer support system, so maybe they meant to leak it. I don't know. OutRun is a cabinet that I singled out among just a couple others as the likely candidate for their first racing game. I did a video early 2020 where I showcased what I thought would be the first wave racing games we'll get and the second wave. And OutRun just is so obvious, it checks a lot of boxes. The big box is it is a 2D sprite-based games. Arcade1up has said repeatedly 2021 is the earliest we will see 3D games, and that's the earliest, so it could be later than that. Well, OutRun is not a 3D game, it's sprite-based. At the same time, it feels a little newer and fresher than some other racing games from its era. It's very bright, it's very colorful. It's a Sega license, which is great. They already work with Sega. The stars just seem to align around OutRun, and I'm a big fan of this game. I really like this game. I love the challenge of dealing with traffic. I love the dynamic component where you've got these different branching paths. Count me in on this. If they do this cabinet well, I probably will seek to get one. Now, let's talk about what we're going to get from a racing cabinet, and let's be realistic, because for 500 bucks or whatever this target price point is, and remember, the retailer you're buying from is going to keep around half of that amount of money. So if they're selling it for 500 bucks, then you can figure the manufacturer is getting about 250 and maybe a little bit more than that, but not much. Well, what are we going to get here? Well, I tend to think we're not going to get a force feedback steering wheel. I really hope we do. I really hope we do. That would potentially make or break this product for a lot of people. Racing without force feedback is just less interesting. But at the same time, the price is such, force feedback is expensive, and even just a plain free-form steering wheel is going to be costly. My hope is that they get the steering rotations correct. I mentioned this in my racing cabinet video, but different racing games, as many of you know, have different types of steering wheels. Some spin freely 360 degrees, others spin commonly 270 or even 180 degrees. There are steps in between, and I've not looked into this for a while, so I don't know it off the top of my head what OutRun is, but I'm just simply telling you that this is one of those things like a 4-way or an 8-way joystick. If you're going to buy a dedicated cabinet for one game, the steering wheel ought to be tuned correctly, and my hope is Arcade1up is working on a steering wheel that they can set internally to have the correct rotation variant so that we can get the game and have the appropriate gameplay. I'm mostly just saying that because I'm hoping if Arcade1up is watching, please make sure you don't screw up this steering wheel. I think the rotation being correct is more important than force feedback. Force feedback, though, is number 2. If it could be afforded to put in here, it would be a huge win, I think. The next thing is, I doubt we're going to get a full racing seat. Every Arcade1up product to date has been flat packed, meaning it's disassembled. You guys have all the boards, stacked on top of each other, and there's a cardboard carton on top of it. This minimizes shelf real estate, and it's going to be hard to do that with a racing cabinet, but it is possible. The Star Wars sit down proved that. But the Star Wars sit down was also very basic. There's nowhere really to put your feet, so you sit on the bench and you have to lean very far forward to grab that yoke and play. To me, that looked like an ergonomic disaster. Maybe it's good enough for a Star Wars game. People usually aren't going to play that game for an hour straight. That's kind of a quick 5 or 10 minute fix type game since it's got pretty short levels. And then you come back and you replay it the next day and try to beat your score. But I doubt people are doing marathon sessions on that game. OutRun, however, you might play for an hour or two, just trying to finally get to the end or try out the different directions or whatever. Not to mention just the sheer novelty of finally having a racing arcade cabinet in your home thanks to Arcade1up. The stakes are raised. We're going to really need somewhere to put our feet. I would advocate for removing or shrinking the kick plate on the front of the arcade, taking that out so that you can put your feet basically under the control panel and you just don't have to lean forward that far. The bench is not ideal, but I think that's what we're going to have to live with. I can't imagine it's going to make any sort of sense to do a racing seat. Now, I've been saying this for a while. Arcade1up needs to watch out because for the, say, the $1,000 price range, the $800, $1,200 price range, that's an open playing field, and some company, maybe it's Ice Games, maybe it's somebody else, but some company is going to deliver product in that niche. A $1,000 racing cabinet can do a lot of things a $500 one can't, including a proper racing seat. So in my opinion, if Arcade1up was on top of this, they would be giving us a la carte options. So if you want to order a racing seat direct from their site, you can, or maybe it's a third party one, but it's designed to be compatible with their cabinet, whatever the case may be. Because racing game fans tend to have a lot of money in their pocket, and they tend to be willing to throw down on a pretty good setup. All right, so that's all I have for OutRun. I do also want to point out the QVC Asteroids 8 games Partycade. It's a niche offering. Not everybody's into the Partycade, and I would suspect that a lot of Asteroid fans are the older folks that want to play a full-size Asteroids cabinet like they used to, or a three-quarter size. But all that said, clearly the Centipede Partycade has done well. Clearly the Pac-Man has done well. So it makes sense for them to come back with a new offering. I've got the Asteroids Arcade1up with an upgraded spinner. I actually like it, spinner, not for Asteroids, of course, but for Tempest and I think Major Havoc. I like that cabinet. I still play it a decent amount, even though it's one of my older cabinets. But man, it really would benefit from the new BOE monitor. The original Gen 1 monitor looks pretty bad in general, but it looks especially bad on games with a black background like Asteroids. So I'm glad to see this getting a re-release. My hope is we'll get a three-quarter scale stand-up arcade re-release here too, because I think that that's pretty warranted. There also are different versions of Miss Pac-Man. There are more than I want to go through. There are 8 million versions. There is a Pac-Man Plus cabinet too, and it's got the light-up front panel and the light-up marquee. Now, the light-up front panel, I saw a photo of a Miss Pac-Man variant. I don't know if this was concept art or what, because I've never seen the photo since. If you guys know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. But they took the Miss Pac-Man and they took what I think is the J panel, where if you're modding the cabinet, you're probably putting your stereo speakers in that slanted panel directly below the control panel. That's the panel I'm talking about. It had the game logo in the center of it and it lit up. I'm not big for the light up stuff. I'm not big for the novelty design elements that weren't there in the original arcade. But I thought it looked pretty cool. I thought it made more sense than a light up control panel. I thought it made more sense than light up buttons or the glow in the back of the cabinet. So of all the weird novelty stuff Arcade1up has done, the light up front panel I thought was cool. But I'm pretty sure I saw that on Miss Pac-Man, and now this is talking about Pac-Man Plus. So it just goes to show we're going to see a lot of variants on Pac-Man. When John D said on Facebook that we've got 4 more versions to go of Pac-Man arcades, and this was recent, this is after all the recent announcements, I don't think he was kidding. The last thing I want to point out, if you have that Super Pac-Man cabinet, which had the issue with button mapping, then apparently the software fix is ready to go, but they're not going to proactively contact you to deliver that fix. It'd be nice if they did, but instead you're going to have to go and submit a ticket. So go ahead and go through that process. I think that's the Costco Super Pac-Man. I don't have this cabinet, but I know some of you do. And fill out and explain your issue, and I guess they will give you the file and instruction uploads. I am curious how you will upload this, because the micro USB port on this cabinet what are you going to connect to it? You can't connect a flash drive unless you have a micro USB to female USB type A, which my guess is very few of you have that cable. That's a very unusual cable. You could take a laptop and connect it directly with, let's say, the cable that you use to charge your Android phone. That would potentially be an option. But it's just kind of weird. I don't know why we don't get a full-size USB port here, and moreover, why isn't it accessible to the outside of the cabinet to make it easier to deliver updates? It was said a while ago that all cabinets at some point moving forward would be Wi-Fi enabled, but I asked John D that on Facebook, and his response was basically this is the patching system going forward using the USB connection. So again, I'm not 100% clear on how to work. If any of you have this cabinet and you go through this process, let me know in the comments how it went. I'm sure they'll sort it out. Maybe you do have to go out and buy a particular type of cable for it. I don't know. But my guess is most of you'd be okay with that as long as you get the fix. I'd be okay with that as long as I get the fix. But I am a little disappointed that we're not getting those Wi-Fi enabled cabinets for more dynamic software updates like we get with NBA Jam. Thanks so much for watching. Always appreciate it. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you soon.